we'll start with the clean, and first off we want to look at the grip for that. So we require a hook grip on our both the clean and the snatch when we're pulling from the floor, and that's where you wrap that thumb around the bar and cover it with your fingers. That's our strongest grip. We often see that used with the deadlift, but very important with the Olympic lifts to get a good grip strength. Then on to how wide do we hold it. Now this is generally for the clean, just wider than shoulder width apart. You want to be able to be comfortable in that front rack position. So that's what we're actually going to move to next. So again, just wider than shoulder width apart, roughly where the knurling starts on the bar. That's that grippy section. So obviously if you pull that up into the front rack, what we do have to make sure to do is that we can achieve this front rack position. If you can't achieve this position, there's no point trying the clean, as it's destined to fail. So with this front rack position, the bar is positioned behind the deltoids, slightly on the anterior delt, shoulders are back, elbows pointing forward to the ball in front of you. If those elbows point down, the weight's going to go into the arms, and it's likely you're going to tip forward and even drop that bar. So you've got to be able to lift those elbows up, and that requires a good amount of thoracic extension. So in that rib cage section of that spine, you'll be able to lift that up, big chest, and you've got to have lat flexibility to get those elbows up, as our lat connects right in here on the inside of our arm all the way down to our hip. So if that's tight, it's not going to allow that arm to lift up. So if you can achieve that position in standing, I want you to try it in the seated, in the squat position. So again, demonstrate that one for me, Austin. So we're in there, and now we're squatting down and holding balance here. Our weight is centered, and we can get to this position, because again, the clean ends here, so we might make sure we can get to that. As you squat down, that becomes harder. The elbows want to drop more as the back tightens up as we squat, and put more emphasis onto that core, keeping us nice and stable. So assuming you can achieve those, thank you Austin, we can put that bar down. Assuming you can achieve those positions, how do we go about getting that bar back to that position? So we're going to start with foot position. We're going to walk up to that bar, and that bar should cover about middle of your foot. So if you were to go onto your tiptoes, where those phalanges meet the metatarsals, that joint as you raise up onto your toes, that wants to be covered by the bar. So you should be able to see those toes forward, and then a slight gap, an inch or two behind the bar to where your shins are. The toes should be pointed out slightly. It should be in your jump stance. So if you do a jump, how wide are you there? Okay, it's probably around hip width apart, toes slightly wider. And then we'll go into the squat and descend down and get to that grip position that we just mentioned, just wider than shoulder width apart. So go ahead and get to that position, Austin. Hook grip there, just wider than shoulder width apart. And you can see, as he squats down, those knees come forward, they advance forward of the bar is now touching the shin. We have our hips higher than our knees. We have a nice straight neutral torso with the shoulders again ahead of that bar. The lats are engaged, they're pulling back, and we have internal rotation in those shoulders into the arm, gripping down. The knees are slightly pressing out into the arms, but not enough to break the arms. The arms are still locked out, and we're nice and tight in that position. That's pretty hard to hold, so I'm going to Austin have a little break there as we show the next position. Now if you are too far forward, you often see people being too far forward in that start position. So when they get through there, they're leaning a little too far, their shoulders are a little too far ahead of that bar, and what that does is pushes your weight onto your toes. Okay, it also lifts up the hips. So as Austin can demonstrate that, go a little too far forward, and in order to do that far forward, the hips have to come up. And that's going to then reduce the amount that those legs can do in generating force up to get to that rack position. You also can be too far back, okay? Leaning back, putting weight into the heels, which is commonly done on a really heavy deadlift, more of a powerlifting movement. That weight going too far back is then going to cause your knees to get in the way of that initial pull. So we'll have to then pull around the knees, bring the bar away from your body, again reducing the power that you're able to generate. So it's ideal to get it just ahead or on top of that bar with the shoulders and knees just ahead. So we've got that initial start position down, then it's the initial pull. So we're into that position, and what we do to start this movement is we want to think about our knees going back and out in that position. We pull them back and out, and we want that torso angle to remain the same. So we raise up with the chest and the hips, shoulders, all at the same time, and keep that angle in the back as we ascend. We want to keep those lats engaged. The bar stays nice and close. The knees go back and go out as you slowly come up, moving out the way so the bar can go up, the knees move out the way. They come into contact to roughly where the thigh is. Our shoulders are still over the bar, they're nice and close, lats are engaged in the back. Go ahead and go back down, relax. Excellent. So start position, the initial pull, legs again out of the way. Again, be careful that your hips don't go up too fast. You're going to lose the power that you're able to generate in the next portion, the most important portion, the explosion, as we do that triple extension up to the front rack position. If we lean too far forward, you're going to create distance away from the bar. We have to then jump under the bar, and we don't want that to happen either. Okay, into that power position, we're going to do that triple extension. A triple extension is when we do a plantar flexion, so we flex at the ankles, knees, and hips, all at the same time, creating an upward propulsion in the body. Simultaneously, as you do that, you're going to do a nice shrug and an upright row. Bring the elbows higher than the wrist at all times, trying to stay over the bar as long as you possibly can before getting out of the way and having a rapid turnover, catching the bar underneath. Now, it's important that you stay really close to the bar and you don't try to lean back too much. Often we see people trying to lean back, but again, if I lean back, I'm creating more distance between myself and the bar, and then we have to chase it. We have to jump underneath the bar, making it more difficult, losing a bit of potential for the weight that can go up. The other thing is you want to wait. Once we get that initial pull through, we want to really make sure that we get high up on those thighs and wait, be patient there. If we go too soon, when we extend, triple extend, the hips will actually push the bar forward, again creating distance between you and the bar, and you're going to have to chase that bar and walk forward to catch it. So timing is critical here. Be patient and wait for that bar to come up onto that thigh. Once it makes contact, we're doing that triple extension up, we're pulling, we're shrugging, everything is upward and not outward. Then it comes to the catch. We want a violent turnover of those elbows. They're high, and suddenly we're underneath, we're wrapped around, and the bar's going into that first catch position, that front rack that we talked about at the beginning. We also want it simultaneously, we're triple extending, we're jumping from that position. We then land in a squat, because we're going to catch this in a front squat. So our feet were in a power jump stance, and they're going to jump up and land in a squat. So slightly wider, so that we can receive that bar in a safer position. So we're jumping up, catching in that front rack, and when we dip, when we go into that catch and we dip, we want to dip with those hips, so that we catch here and we don't tip our chest forward and our hips back to catch. You're not going to be able to catch like this. If Austin shows a good demonstration here of a good catch, we're going to get that slow, that start position, everything nice forward of the bar, good tension, good knees, hips above knees, slowly up, create that triple extension, catching, and standing up. Even pressure, remember we talked about this in a previous clinics when we talked about the squat, we talked about the deadlift. The big toe, the little toe and the heel all have equal pressure as they push away, push into the ground and push away and create this upward force. So catching it, we descend with that chest, nice and high, we descend with the hips and a nice upright torso so that we can catch it. We descend all the way to that bottom of the squat. If we try to catch it a little bit above that bottom position, absorb that weight, absorb the force, and we don't just slam into it. And then we achieve that balance position at the bottom and we stand back up. Let's see it all the way through, Austin. Down and finish by standing. And that's the clean. Now you can break this down. Often when we teach this, we'll start it from a hang clean, which is a starting position right here. We're teaching that triple extension before we add in the complexity of that deadlift. We're not going to cover that today, but future videos will.